I'm Michael Williams, joining you live, and with me from the United States Capitol is Congressman Mast, the Republican from District 18, covering Martin, St. Lucie, and parts of Palm Beach County. Sir, obviously, so many Americans shocked at what they are seeing today. And first of all, tell me the latest. Where are you? Tell me where you were when you got the word you need to evacuate. Bring us up to speed on what has happened thus far, on your safety, that of your staff, and where you are now.
I am in my office right now in the Rayburn House office building, which is basically across the street from the Capitol. We have tunnels that go between the Capitol and the congressional offices. When this took place, the scenario that played out for me was I had just finished speaking on the House floor. I had read a message saying that there was actually a true bomb threat that had gone on at a building, a couple buildings over, known as the Capitol Hill Club, or the National Republican Congressional building there. And so there was an actual bomb there. And I had just vacated the House floor to head back to my office. And I would have to believe the timing of this was that as I was going out one door, it must have been right about as those protesters were coming in a different door, because this wasn't going on when I left the floor. And in the 5 minutes that it took me to walk back to my office and I see the TV, when I walked back in, I saw what was going on, and that's how it played out for me.
One Democratic congresswoman from our area, I understand, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm talking to my bosses, was in her gas mask, I believe, near or in her office. Did you have to put on a gas mask, any of your staff?
No.
Forgive me, let me just say, let me correct. It was a mask, not a gas mask, though at one point we'd heard word that people still on the floor were being able to get out gas masks. The local congresswoman had a mask that people are wearing because of COVID, not a gas mask. Let me clarify. But nonetheless, were you asked to, did any of you or your staff have to put on a gas mask, as at one point was being urged?
No, so there was an alert that went out when they tell people to seek shelter or take cover or whatever that might be. They urge people to lock their office doors. So actually, when I returned to my office, I was surprised my door was locked. I didn't know what was going on right at that moment. Knocked on the door. My staff gave me access to the office and immediately saw what was going on TV. But as I said, I left the House chamber, the floor, immediately following speaking there, and there was nothing going on directly behind me. It must have happened, within 30 seconds to a minute, right on my tail, right behind me as I was walking out the other direction. And so there was no police escort for me. There was no anything. I didn't realize it was happening until I returned to my office.
Congressman Mast, what is your direct message to those who have and would continue to violently protest and assault our nation's capital? So many Americans, not Democrat, not Republican Americans, are saying, we're watching Americans assault our nation's capital. What is your very direct, blunt message to those violent protesters?
This is un-American. This is putting our law enforcement officers at risk. It needs to come to an end immediately. And it is so counter to the democracy, the democratic process that was literally taking place as the Capitol was broken into. Now, it should never be denied. This is the people's house, and the people deserve to witness and see what's going on in that democratic process. But to interrupt that is so counterproductive and so wrong and so contrary to what we all of those Capitol police officers as well that are put at risk throughout all of this.
Already, voices are saying, why are we so surprised that for months, many have said the election is fraudulent, even though one court after another, including many Republican judges appointed by President Trump, said it was fraudulent. He has said as late as today, before a big rally at the White House, we're not going to concede. We're told that President Trump's going to make a statement, perhaps a taped statement that we're expecting, we're not quite sure when. Why should we suddenly be so surprised that with all that's been going on and all the rhetoric, that it resulted in the historic ugliness we're seeing today?
I was surprised to see this happen. I was surprised. I'm not surprised to see people rally outside of the Capitol or outside of the White House or protest or whatever it is that their gathering does. But to see people break the window, you think about all the layers of security that these people went through to do this. Number one, they went through waist-high fences that were surrounding the entire Capitol, saying this is a contained area, don't go beyond this. And there were officers at those fence lines. Then after breaching that, they go up the steps, through doors, breaking through them, or windows, bypassing through metal detectors and things like that, and more officers. These are officers, police officers, Capitol police officers. Then to go beyond that to the chamber, the House floor chamber, and other places where you've seen images of guns drawn by those Capitol police officers, pointing out various windows where they were trying to breach into those places. There are a number of layers of security. Yes, I'm totally surprised to see that action taken, because I personally haven't seen that advocated for in any kind of way. I consider it anti-patriotic in the highest order.
Sir, will you, as you had told me Monday in an extensive or lengthy interview, you had said at the time that you were going to oppose certification of electoral votes, despite the fact that courts have said there's no there, despite the fact that the president's now former attorney general said that there was no widespread fraud, despite the fact that his election chief that he fired, who was a Republican, said it was a secure election. Against the backdrop of what we're seeing today, will you withdraw your objection to the certification of votes in places like Arizona, Georgia, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and I believe Wisconsin? Correct me if I'm wrong.
Not agreeing with what I see going on outside of the Capitol here is not correlated with my stance that there have been very serious allegations, not all that have gone through the courts. As I said, I left the House floor after speaking about the state of Arizona, where I asked Speaker Pelosi a very direct question that she refused to answer, which was, can you honestly tell the American people that the state's constitution and laws within Arizona were not violated when this is still being seen by the Supreme Court? She refused to answer that question. And the point that I'm making is, while I disagree with absolutely everything that's going on outside of the buildings that I'm in here, that does not change the concerns that I have about the state constitutions and the state's laws that were violated in several states that I've looked at as it relates to voting in those states. So to answer your question pointedly, no, I will not withdraw those objections that I have.
I want to have you respond to what President-elect Joe Biden said moments ago. Again, we're waiting to hear a statement from the president, either live or taped. We're still waiting for that. But let me ask you, will the electoral count go on? Already people on both sides of the aisle said we will not let, quote, thugs derail this process. Will the count, one way or the other, continue until it is done?
The count will continue. I believe the count will continue. As I said, this is the democratic process was playing out as we speak, a layer that existed that had been used by both Republicans and Democrats historically. Part of what I spoke about on the floor were literally Speaker Pelosi's own words going back to 2004, that this was not conspiracy. It should never be looked at in that way. This is the democratic process, to use her Speaker Pelosi's own words. And that's what was playing out. And I'm disgusted to see it interrupted.
But sir, are you not substituting your judgment for all of those I named? Judges appointed by President Trump, a former attorney general, a Republican, a former elections chief, a Republican, a former House Speaker, Paul Ryan, a Republican, who said that what you and others are doing is anti-conservative and anti-democratic. Where do you substitute your judgment for the judgments that have been made by many others with the authority to look at this over many months? And again, I would come back to the question. We're getting comments. I'm not going to read them at this point, but a number of people said, let's not pretend we're surprised that gasoline was being poured and that the match got lit.
No, there's not a substitute of judgment here. We're all tasked with making our own decisions in this place. 435 representatives, 100 senators. It is never a moment of our job to participate in some level of groupthink in any direction, but to go out there and question, and certainly question with respect to those that we have the honor to represent. To go out there and say, if I can phrase this in a different way, I have tens of thousands of constituents that want to see this part of the democratic process play out, and say, we want to see more investigation before those electors are certified where state constitutions and laws appear to have been violated. That is representative as well.
And very much we have heard that side of the debate. You're quite correct. President-elect Biden said, and I'd like you to respond to his statements, this is not dissent, chaos, it borders on sedition. Strong statement. Do you agree?
Look, I think that's fair for those that are breaking into the. I assume he's talking about those that are breaking into
Yes,
the
yes,
Capitol
yes.
complex.
He's talking about the violent protests we're seeing at our nation's capital.
I didn't hear the full context of what he was saying, but you know, in that if he's talking about those that are breaking into the Capitol complex, putting at risk our Capitol police officers, yes, that should be looked at the highest level of breaking our laws.
But sir, they're not just putting at risk, and goodness knows for our frontline people, police officers and others, a tremendous concern for their well-being and safety, to be sure. But many are saying they're putting at risk our democracy. The Republican Senate Majority Leader today, Mitch McConnell, at one point said, "I will not be part." I'm slightly paraphrasing, but he did say this. We keep this up, we're looking at the death spiral for democracy. That's a Republican who's been in the Senate for more than 3 decades who said, we cannot do this. So a lot of people saying above and beyond physical threats to lawmakers like you, physical threats to Capitol Hill police, we've put democracy in the crosshairs today. And people like Mitch McConnell, again, a Republican, the Senate Majority Leader, making a statement. Do you agree with Senator McConnell, who says we cannot go down a path lest we create a death spiral for democracy? I'm quoting there.
No, I don't agree with him in this respect. I don't think it's important just what we say. What's more important than that doesn't always get out is why do we say something or why do we do something? What brings us to the conclusion that is being played out? So I can't speak for the why of every individual that objects to some of the electors of pick your states. I object to some, I don't object to all. And I can't speak to the whys for all of those that do not object to them. But I can speak to the whys for me. What I read over the past weeks, what I've looked at in terms of cases that have been heard, have been not heard, what has gone on in our Judiciary Committee, what has been investigated and not investigated. And that's the why for me that I can sit here and say, I believe that those items deserve to be investigated where states' constitutions have been violated and laws were broken as it relates to the elections, the review of signatures, the garnering of absentee ballots, and a host of other issues that you and I have spoken about. I can say for me, that is the why. And so for in that, I am comfortable objecting to that. And I believe it's an important layer of the democratic process, as I said, that have been used by both Republicans and Democrats.
We'll begin to wrap up. Just a few more questions for those of you joining us. I am live with U.S. Representative Brian Mast, Republican from the 18th District, representing Martin, St. Lucie, and parts of Palm Beach County, joining us live from his office at the Rayburn Building. He and his staff are safe. The congressman says he expects, of course, this is fluid now, but expects the electoral count to go on and conclude today. Sir, the president-elect—
I can't say today.
Oh, excuse me, but to conclude in due course, but to continue.
I believe there are 5 days based
exactly.
upon the policy of this to, once you begin this electoral count, to complete this electoral count. I have my doubts as to whether it will continue today.
Fair point. And in fact, NBC News was bringing up that very point. And thank you for that important clarification. The president-elect said at one point, I call on President Trump, quoting here, to go on national television to fulfill his oath to defend the Constitution and demand an end to this siege. Response to that, and if you're standing next to President Trump right now, given the violence that's been going on, what would your direct message be to President Trump right now?
To implore the people that are standing within the Capitol to tell them this is not our democratic process, that we are a country that is better than this, that for all of the differences that we all have, we have far more common ground every single day, that we're bigger than what is happening right there with those breaches within the Capitol, and to show ourselves as better than that, to implore that to occur, and to allow the democratic process to continue immediately, or at least as soon as it can continue, following what has gone on in these moments.
Sir, the House Democrats have the votes to make sure that no matter what happens at the end of the day, it will not derail the electoral votes. And Joe Biden is going to be inaugurated January 20th. It's a matter of numbers in the House. House Democrats have the majority. The objections will go on, but at the end of the day, the electoral count will be confirmed. Come January 20th, as the military salutes their new commander-in-chief, will you, a former Army man who served your country honorably, nearly gave his life doing so, out of uniform now, but will you still proverbially salute your new commander-in-chief?
Absolutely. Just because I disagree with various platforms of an individual, that doesn't mean that I will never respect, or that I won't respect the office to which somebody holds. Many people know this about me personally. When I was a newly injured service member in Walter Reed, barely a month, maybe a couple months out of injury, I was asked to attend as the guest of President Barack Obama, to be their guest at the State of the Union address. I didn't agree with everything that President Obama stood for or spoke about, but that doesn't mean that I didn't respect the fact that he was my commander-in-chief, and that aspect of me will never change.
Final thoughts from you, sir, as representative of our 18th district. To people, you represent a swing district. You have Democrats you represent and the Republicans who voted for you. Your message as people look on across this country today, many in shock, not wearing party labels, but saying as Americans, my goodness, how did we get here? How do we begin to repair the rupture in the fabric of our national conversation?
I can't remember fully if you and I had this conversation earlier in the year, because we've spoken a number of times, but I know I've said to a number of people, even in months back, I don't fully know how we heal. I can't sit here and pretend that I know the answer to how we heal, coming from both directions. The attacks that are levied in both ways. And it's where I think maybe one of the steps going forward has to be something about what I spoke to you just a moment ago, saying we need to get beyond just what we say or what we want to say, and move into why we're saying something, and have a real discussion with the people that we disagree with. Not you're this or you're this, but this is why I believe this. Why do you believe that? And let's see where we get to from that point. And I find that it's a big piece of the conversation that is missing in many places. I can't pretend that that's fully the answer, but I can't also say to you that I have fully the answer of how we heal. I've been asking it for months.
U.S. Representative Brian Mast, Congressman from the 18th District of Florida, covering Martin, St. Lucie, parts of Palm Beach County, who has, thank you for being generous with your time on this tumultuous day, joining us live from the United States Capitol. He and his staff are safe and sound. The Congressman expects the electoral vote to go on. It has several days in which it can wrap up. We'll keep an eye on that. We appreciate you taking time and offering perspective to your constituents and to our broader audience here in South Florida. Thank you very much, Congressman Mast.
Absolutely. All the best.
Good day, sir.